All right. Coming up on today's edition of the Art Business Morning Show, we're talking about starting with demand, okay, and working backwards. Everybody does this wrong, specifically how to pick subject material, where to start, the way most artists and photographers do it, and a new way to do it. Based on my dog going nuts, I can hear that the Amazon guy is here. Welcome to another edition of the Art Business Mornings, the show that will put you on the path to a six-figure a year plus art business. Now, before I follow my rather incendiary title up on this one, I want to get into a quick programming note, as it were. Best way to keep up with the show, it is, of course, to subscribe. We broadcast live on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, yes, Twitter too. After the fact, the show ends up into the podcast feed. So if you're watching on Instagram, be sure to follow us there. The @ handle is Art Storefronts, all one word. We recently had to move Instagram accounts. We are proud recipients here at Art Storefronts of the Instagram ban hammer. Yep, see somebody's asking me on Instagram now, where did all your posts go? They told us nothing. Instagram shut that old account down. They told us nothing. We can't get it back. We've been trying hard to get it back, but it's just gone. Poof. See you later. So for those that have been asking, including you, Jay Becky Photo, that's where all the old posts went. That's why they're gone. It's the world that we live in today, sadly. The ban hammer can come down from the social medias for no reason, no explanation whatsoever, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. So, if anything offers a poignant reminder of why you need to A, own your own website, B, have your own email list, this is it, right? Because anything can be taken away from you and shut down at any point in time, and there's not a doggone thing you can do about it. Pick yourself up, you get back at it. So new Instagram account, love to have you guys follow it again at Art Storefronts. If you're watching on Facebook, please like the page. That's a great way to get into these live broadcasts. You can ask questions at any point in time. And if YouTube is your jam, everything is still archived on YouTube, thankfully, so you can go and get the old episodes. Then one of my favorites, great way to be able to fast forward and rewind videos quite easily, plays in the background on an iPhone, which is a fantastic way to do it. So you can search Art Storefronts TV on YouTube, never miss a live broadcast. And with any of the live broadcasts too, you can leave a comment at any point in time. I check them, I respond to them, I see them. And a lot of times we'll go down the rabbit hole discussing stuff with you. So now that that's sorted, let's get into today's show. So start with demand and work backwards, okay? Everybody does this wrong. Everybody does this wrong. So before we get into the start with demand, I should probably start out with what everybody does first that they get wrong. And, before I even do that, I have to say that this episode dovetails with, is complementary to the last one that we just did on pivots and pivoting. So if you hear me say pivots and pivoting and you're like, what the heck is that? Then you should probably go back, listen to the previous episode of the Art Business Mornings, in all those aforementioned places, and then come back. Don't worry, I'll wait. Okay, great, welcome back. So you're an artist or a photographer. You have a talent with a brush or a camera or pencils, whatever your medium is. You start to create based on what inspires you, what you enjoy doing, what you've always done. You then attempt to sell that work. You either met with crickets or a tepid response, okay? Your reaction, what I know is a normal human reaction, is to instantly internalize that feedback, the fact that you didn't get a great reaction, the fact that stuff wasn't selling, as criticism towards you. Perhaps you're not good enough. You lack the chops. Your father was right. Art is just a hobby. It's not a career, right? Perhaps you even go as far to completing that stage of rejection, and then you level up to the next one, right? From internal criticism and self-doubt, then there's got to be somebody to blame. So you start in on art's just not selling right now. The internet has ruined art sales. It's a tough economic time, so nobody is buying anything. Or the market is just too competitive. Or perhaps you blame your website. If you could just had a different one, then things might go differently, and that might fix it. or you've just not found the right marketplace to upload to, right? How's that going for everybody? So if you could just get into a gallery, maybe then you would start selling. That would solve everything, or some of my other favorites that, I hear week in, week out on the Art Business Workshops. I get them in my emails. You come on one of those, you listen to the pitch, and then you start asking me, what are the best selling mediums and sizes, perhaps even price points. Hey, Patrick, what are the hottest selling mediums and sizes and price points? As if that is going to fix your problem. Okay. It has zero, doggone near zero effect in the grand scheme of things. The sizes, the sizes, the price points, the media types, right? That's not the issue. That's not the issue. Okay. The examples here abound, and I could go on and on and on. What if you, me, us have been operating, okay, with a flawed piece of software, a premise that is just actually completely wrong? Instead of taking all of that feedback, the lack of sales, the tepid response, as criticism towards you or your style, what if we flip the script, right? What if we didn't take it as criticism? What if we realize that maybe the fact that things are not selling, or the fact that you're getting a tepid response, is just all part of the process. It's all part of being on the path, right? What if we skipped a day of school in which you could have learned this, or if we missed a story from a mentor about rejection, okay, that it is a far from being the death knell that everyone thinks it is, that the game is over for you, and instead it's just a stepping stone on the entrepreneurial and creative journey towards becoming a successful artist and or photographer, because it is, and it turns out, this is a hard lesson to learn. It's a hard lesson to learn, and it takes a lot of time. And it's not so easy, right? Like, not taking no for an answer is actually the right premise. The fact that grit, determination, and giving zero fox, by which I mean FOX, when you get rejected, is actually the only way to win. When you get rejected, when your work is not selling, when it's getting a tepid response, it's barely selling here or there. And I've been reading a biography recently on a rather famous African-American you all likely heard of, one Elon Musk. And you want to know somebody that has grit and determination? Turns out it's Elon. Also turns out he got it from his dad, whose name is Errol, who apparently was a lot of unsavory things, come to find out in this book. But a quitter or undetermined was not one of them. Elon Musk's mom was effectively a South African supermodel. And, run a Google search on that one if you want to fact check. She was a beautiful woman. And Musk's mom, whose name is May, talks about how determined Elon's father, Errol, was. And apparently he asked for her hand in marriage some ridiculous number of times. I can't remember. It was like 30 or 40 times, something like that, until he finally got the job done. And she said, yes, she relented to the pressure. Then later in the book, as I'm reading, Musk was enamored with this gal in college, and he went to school in Canada. And this gal was, the hottest girl in college. All the guys wanted her, this, that, and the other. And Elon finally was persistent and got an ice cream date out of her. He's like, hey, I want to take you out for ice cream or whatever. So he goes to pick her up at the dorm, and there's a note on the door that said, sorry, couldn't do it. Too busy, things got in the way or whatever. So here's where this grit and determination comes in. He was rejected. He immediately starts interviewing the roommates, finds out where she is. Turns out she's studying in the library. He goes and gets 2 ice cream cones and walks into the library, right? So it turns out her blowing Elon off was a normal thing, and she continued to do it after the ice cream date. And apparently Elon would call her house, and he would just leave it ringing and leave it ringing and leave it ringing until she picked up, and then call again and call again and call again. Dude was just relentless, right? Relentless. Just kept going and going and going. No, and taking no for an answer is just not in that guy's vocabulary. And I think we've all seen how well it's worked out for him. So you want to make it as an artist or a photographer or creative, start with not taking no for an answer, right? With understanding rejection is part of the process, a stepping stone on the path to being successful. And, the next step on the path, okay, is understanding you're going to have to pivot and pivot often throughout your career, and you can never stop. You can never stop. Okay. You don't care for Musk and his fanboys. You forget that anecdote, right? But the one that does stick with you, maybe the one that's a little bit closer to home, is you remember this Picasso stat that I've been saying nonstop since I learned it, which when he died, he had 45,000 unsold works in his inventory. Okay. An entire history of pivots that spanned a career of rejection that created the most inimitable and one of the most famous artists of all time, right? That's ever lived. So history is replete with the stories of the people that have figured this technique out of starting with demand and working backwards. And it's super, super counterintuitive, this. Nobody ever talks about this, right? Well, mostly nobody anyway. For me, thinking this technique through, this episode will be really successful. I will be over the moon if after listening to it or after watching it, you start marinating on this concept. It's a seed that's planted in your mind, something that you are capable of doing, a new way of thinking, an upgrade to the flawed software that you've all been running under, right? That I've certainly run under multiple times, a new premise. So start with demand and work backwards. When we are contemplating what your niche is going to be or what subject material you're going to create, what mediums you're going to work in, what if instead, okay, of starting with what inspires us or what you feel like creating, you flip the script 180 degrees. 180 degrees. You start with demand, what people actually want and what people are actually buying, and you work backwards. You start with what people want, what's selling in the market, and then you go create it. You don't create it and then take it to the market and realize that it doesn't sell. So before you put brush to canvas, okay, or the pencil to paper, or before you set your shutter speed and aperture and put the camera on the tripod, you do some homework first, right? You do some homework. So let me continue to unpack this thing conceptually. And perhaps I'm going to lightly dance on how to go about doing something like this tactically. And then for certain, I will go really deep tactically on future episodes, or if you're Art Storefront's customer, you know, we're going to be teaching this all year long. And there's a ton to the tactics, the how to do it. But I think, again, having the seed planted in your mind, you know, upgrading the software and starting to think this way is a huge step towards the process, step, you know, on the path, if you like. And, you know, you do this once you start going down this rabbit hole. Once you take the proverbial red pill, there's no turning back. You are and will be forever changed. Better still, there's a great deal of creativity that can be applied to this type of thinking and discovery and research. And it's a creativity that a lot of you are chock full with to begin with. You might suck at marketing, but you guys are all creative people. So you're gonna take to this like a fish to water. So what if instead of creating, you started thinking about demand? Okay. Question for you. What company is this? What company is this? And this is, I just read this recently, yesterday, Googling, although I'd read it in books before. We start with the customer and work backwards, constantly asking, and I quote, what do customers want? And we have identified that it comes down to price, convenience, and selection. These are our consistent pillars, and we build our business around them. What business do you think that is? What business is that? Price, convenience, and selection. Business is Amazon. Turns out they took the red pill years ago, and it appears to be working out quite well for them. So what if instead of creating what you wanted to do, you started thinking about demand, the retail version? So most people don't know this, but the CEO of Art Storefronts, Nick, and I we went to high school and college together. We had a business in high school. It was a clothing company. Started in high school. We carried it on through college, a little bit after college. And we were outside of like a cut and sew factory, you know, where you get garments made. And this was in LA, and downtown LA in the fashion district. And there was this super dapper looking black dude, shaved head, standing next to his Lexus. And he saw us come out, and he could spot the fact that we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. And he's like, what are you guys doing in there? What are you trying to get made? And we're like, well, we're working on a jacket. He's like, tell you what, let me flip you guys a jacket. So he said, flip. I'll never forget it. Let me flip you guys a jacket. You see if you like it. If you like it, you can put some orders in with me. I know what I'm doing here. We're like, done. Great. Let's do it. So met up with him like 48 hours later. He's got this entire jacket that he's made, and it's cool. I mean, it's super cool. It's the design. It was all sewed. I mean, he was ready to wear. It was a sample ready to go. And we ended up hiring him and working with him really closely for like 6 years. And he ended up being an early mentor and imparting some just insanely sage advice. And how would it go? So the clothing company grew. We started doing trade shows, and the big trade show back then was this one called ASR in San Diego. Maybe it still is. Do trade shows even happen in that industry anymore? I don't know, in pandemic times. And, you know, all the buyers would fly in to Southern California, okay, to go to the show in San Diego. But most often they wouldn't, the smart ones anyway, and especially not the international ones, they wouldn't fly directly into San Diego. They'd fly into LA. And what they would do is the buyers would hit Melrose, okay, which used to be the cool spot in LA. I know it's like Robertson or wherever the heck else it is now. And they would go into all the stores and they would see what was going on. And they would also hit Fred Segal, because Fred Segal was like the coolest back then. Maybe it still is. I don't know. I'm out of the world. And so Mike knew this. His name was Mike. And we drive up to LA, and this is what he taught us to do. And it was genius. And it still is genius. We would drive, we'd leave San Diego. We were in San Diego at the time, drive directly up to Los Angeles, and we'd start at the Fred Segal in Santa Monica. And he would walk into the store and he'd go, watch this, guys. You know, we would just be tailing him and he would show us. He would walk up to every single solitary sales associate and he would say, what's selling right now? What can you not keep in? What is flying off the racks? Can you show me? I'm curious. And maybe it would be a jean or a shirt or a particular jacket or a brand of clothing. And then after this first one had been interrogated, boom, over to the next one on the floor. If there was a manager, boom, the one on the manager. Boom, we'd leave. Outside of the place, we'd go, okay, what do we learn? So this thing's selling, this thing's selling, this thing's selling. Let's figure it out. Jump in the car. And then we would drive to Melrose. And there was like 6 or 7 shops in Melrose. And again, robotic. In first sales associate, what's selling? What's flying off the racks? What are the trends? Let me know what's going on. Oh, this stuff is so hot. This pair of jeans, honestly, we cannot keep this pair of jeans in for 30 seconds. It's going to be sold out. It's a miracle I even have one. Okay, what do we learn? Does it click with what we learned in the previous store? And, you know, once you go through this technique and you realize and you get this feedback, like, make it counterintuitive. How many of you guys have gone into a store and asked the salesperson, like, what's the best selling thing you have in this shop? No one ever does that, right? And no one ever asks the salespeople that. And you're like, why would I ask that? Why would I do that? And then after you've seen this done a couple of times and then start doing it yourself, you're like, oh my gosh, like, you know, it's like pulling a finger out of a dam. The salesperson is so stoked to just say like, oh, you've taken an interest in my world. That's wonderful. I'd love to tell you about it. So it's this, this, and this. And then, you know, some employees know less than others, but when you get a good one, it is like a wealth of information. Like, oh yeah, how long has that been selling? Really? Oh yeah, this is the up and coming brand. You know, we got these guys early, but everyone else is going to get them next. We would go back to San Diego, had a graphic designer at that point in time too. We'd huddle around, talk about what the new concepts, what was selling, figure out how we could duplicate aspects of it. And our product improved greatly as a result. We started with demand and we worked backwards. Okay. We worked backwards. And that's sort of a retail way of thinking about it, right? So, you know, how easy, once you understand that's a thing, can you employ that in your own life? Right? When normal life returns, whenever that is, and you're at a mall or you're on Main Street and you're waiting for your significant other to get out of whatever store they're in, you walk into the store that's selling art or photography and you start asking questions. It could be a store, it can be a gallery, whatever. Question for you. You know, I'm looking to outfit my place. Come up with whatever backstory you want or don't. What's the best selling art you have in here right now? What's trending? What can you just not even keep on the wall, right? You start asking those questions. It can be anywhere. It can be in the art section at Bed Bath & Beyond. Do they have one? I don't know. Or it can be in the motivational poster store or whatever it is, wherever they're selling art in any capacity whatsoever. Ask them what they cannot keep on the wall. What is really selling? You will start getting some amazing, amazing ideas. And, you know, it's very easy to make this a part of your practice. And once you do, there is no going back. I do this all over the world, anywhere I go, about anything that I'm interested in. And what you can learn by asking these questions is just phenomenal, phenomenal. So that's the retail version. Okay. What if instead of creating, you wanted to do what you want? With them, I hacked my whole little thing. I had a rhythm going on. What instead of creating what you wanted to, you started thinking about demand? The bookstore version. The bookstore version. Now, this is sort of a hybrid. I'm using it to tell you a story, but same thing works in the bookstore. Walk into the photo book section or the art book section and ask them, what is the art table book that you cannot keep in stock right now? What is the one that's selling the best, right? You could ask them that way. But there's this story about Mark Cuban, okay? And Mark Cuban's like he hit it big early in tech. He now owns some sports teams, kind of outspoken political guy, Shark Tank guy, all of that. And when he was contemplating early investments in these various different companies, he would try to figure out if what segment they were going into had a big enough market size to actually be a thing. And this was sort of pre-internet days when he was talking about this, or cusp of internet days. And so he would walk into the Barnes and Nobles or the Borders or whatever it is, and he would go to the magazine section and he would look and see how many magazines actually existed for this particular niche. Thumb through them a little bit, see what was going on. And in his mind, he's like, okay, if there's a bunch of magazines, then there's a huge market for this. If there's a huge market, this product stands a much better chance of making it, right? So there's a retail bookstore version. Now, what if instead of creating what you wanted to do, you started thinking about demand, the search engine version? Okay, the search engine version. Yes, of course, Google. Yes, of course, YouTube. But there are others as well that are often overlooked, right? And some of them actually have sales data. So thinking about a niche, a style, a subject matter, start by Googling it. What are the search terms that define it? Search Googles. Are there a lot of results? Put the results in a spreadsheet. A lot of websites. Is there a lot of art that is for sale there? Do people even know how to find this particular thing? What about abstract? How do you Google abstract art, right? All of these questions start to come up when you start doing this, when you start doing the Googling. So you start with the search. You look at the search volume. It tells you at the top. And again, I'm teasing you with the tactical that we will get into in more hardcore versions and video versions later, especially if you're a customer. But how do people search for it, right? Then you do a Google shopping search, and then you find an online art boutique that is selling the particular thing. And then you fill out the contact form and you ask the shop owner, what are your best selling items? What's really working for you, right? Very, very easy to do. This is all just a muscle like anything else. Every time I think about the Google situation, it brings up the restaurant situation. And I learned from Mike Campbell, actually, outside of a cut and sew place in LA, and then eventually at Melrose, to ask what is the best selling thing. So amongst certainly my wife and I, but my friends, you know what I'm known as? Okay. You want to know what I am known as a result of that mentor, as a result of Mike Campbell teaching me that technique? I am known as the best restaurant orderer in the business. Okay. No one comes even close to me. It doesn't matter where we are, in what country, I will come up with, we all sit down at the restaurant and I will get a better meal than you are. None of us know what the reputation is. We don't know which dish is the best. I will end up getting the best dish. And surprise, how do I do this? Time and time again. I ask the damn waiter, what are your 3 most popular dishes? Okay. What does my wife do? My wife looks at the menu, and I'm not taking a dig at her. She will laugh at this because I make fun of her for it incessantly and she thinks it's funny. She looks at the menu and she goes up and down the menu and she picks the thing that most appeals to her, right? We're in a steakhouse and she loves lobster. There's one lobster item on the menu. That's what she loves and she gravitates towards. So she picks the lobster. And I'm looking at her going, we are in a steakhouse. Okay. They are not known for lobster. They are known for steak. You get a steak here. Waiter, what is the best dish on the menu? And she'll even ask it now too, but she just defaults back to doing what she wants to do. How like art is that restaurant analogy? You guys are looking at the menu, and instead of asking any questions about what's the best selling thing, what is the wisdom of crowd said that this particular restaurant is really, really, really good at, you're just ordering off the menu what you like. Maybe you love a split pea soup, and we're not even in a soup place, and you're ordering the doggone, where did I come up with the split pea soup? You're ordering the damn split pea soup, okay? Don't order the damn split pea, whatever that is. Ask the waiter. Okay, not every restaurant is going to have 100 beautiful dishes. Ask the waiter, what is the most popular thing on the menu? 2 and 3 things. Order that. Okay, that works so incredibly well. Back to the search engines. Okay, what are the best selling photo books and or art books on Amazon right now. What about the reviews? Okay. You can go on Amazon. You can say this one's number 7 on a list. You can click the top bestsellers on that list. You can look at the top 10. You can click on the item. You can see how many reviews it has. You can see when it was released. You can go dig into the comments and the reviews. No one does this. So smart. Sort by newest. Look at the top ones. See what other artists and photographers they're mentioning. This book is phenomenal. It reminds me of such and such's work, right? There's incredible rabbit holes you can go down even on Amazon that has all of this various different types of search data. So again, I can show these techniques. We'll get into it more tactically. My favorite search engine of them all, okay, where social proof comes baked into it and standard, Instagram. Instagram's down here, so I was looking at Instagram. Guy, it's a phenomenal search engine. It's amazing. And I know you thought it was just to stay up to date with your friends and post a bunch of your 2D images, never merchandising or holding them. Why are you doing that? And to potentially see a new pair of spandex that somehow one of the Kardashians managed to shoehorn themselves into. Okay. But Instagram, or the talented operator, is rather more than that. It is rather more than that. You start with search terms. You perambulate about. Okay. The search terms takes you to tags. The tags take you to the most popular shared images. The most popular images take you to individual profiles. On the individual profile, you're looking at past posts. You're looking at the story highlights. You're looking at their website, okay? And you might even send them a DM. Hey, Artsy Chick 379, I really dig your work. Just out of curiosity, what are your best-selling pieces? I'm looking to outfit a vacation house I have. I'd love to get something that the crowd's already decided is your best, right? Interesting way to learn. Interesting way to learn. You're like, what did I just figure out there, right? Okay. What if instead of creating what you wanted to do, you started thinking about demand, the newsjacking version, you insert yourself in the zeitgeist of the day. If you remember pivots, right? And pivots from the last episode, pivots are no different than ice cream or no different than mattresses. Ice cream comes in different flavors. Mattresses come in varying degrees of firmness or softness. So too does a pivot. There's macro, whole cloth, full niche, completely change everything. Or there is the micro pivot, an individual piece or a media type of the like, right? Same thing here. What is newsjacking? Coined by famous marketer David Meerman Scott. You always have to be wary of the ones that have 3 names. He came up with this concept, newsjacking. And it's essentially you grab a news story that is hot at a particular moment and you insert yourself into the news. The most famous version of this, one of the most creative versions of this, is however many years ago when the Chilean miners got stuck in the mine in Chile, right? Los 33, the 33. The 33 miners that were stuck in the ground. Somebody from Oakley, okay, figured out that there's a very good chance those miners are getting out of the mine. If they are, what if we had Oakley sunglasses on them? And they somehow flew a rep out there or got a rep out there and, they had contact and were putting things up and down the hole. These guys were underground for 33 days. The sun was going to blind their eyes. Here's our latest and greatest Oakley polarized glasses. Send 33 pairs down just in case these guys start coming up. What ends up happening? One by one, they're coming up out of the mine, all wearing Oakley sunglasses. It was one of the greatest and most creative marketing coups in the history of marketing. For effectively the cost of 33 free pairs of sunglasses that cost Oakley $10 a pair, $300 maybe, they got millions, $10 million of earned free inventory and free advertising. I mean, that was like a free Super Bowl commercial. There was probably more people watching those first couple of miners come up out of the mine than there was any of them. You remember that? Remember that one guy where it was like his wife and his mistress were right next to each other? Oh, so busted. Anyway, that's newsjacking. Okay. And I got to be honest with you, some ASF artists have impressed me with this lately. And, going back a couple of months to the George Floyd situation and Black Lives Matter coming up, there was a whole bunch of people that decided to create work that sympathized with that movement, okay, and took it to market. They inserted themselves in a news story. We had another artist, mom with daughters, that was a huge RBG fan, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. A Ruth Bader Ginsburg piece was instantaneously created. Original sold, a ton of prints sold. So, you can do it in the newsjacking capacity. You are starting with demand. There's a whole bunch of people that are interested in this news story. And what do? They create work that satisfies the demand. So all of these are examples of how to start with demand and work backwards. And it is a drastic, utter, total, and complete change to the way most people think. Most people do not think this way. Most people do not create this way. Most people listen to the waiter telling you what the best dishes are, and they just go and pick what they like the best. And they're my wife. So gotta tweak the thinking, right? You gotta tweak the thinking. It is not easy. You gotta just take that red pill and start in on it. And an art career is no different than Elon Musk and one of his rockets into space. How so? Let me explain this. The artist or photographer's aim and or goal should be getting the rocket into space, okay? Leaving Earth's atmosphere and getting into zero gravity, i.e. space, is when you've made it, okay? I'm using an analogy. It's when you've made it. It's when you have momentum, when everything's become earlier, when your art will start growing on its own organically, okay? When you can take the dream of making it as a creator and turning it into a reality and grow a serious business. It's the goal. It's what you want to do. Problem is, it turns out it takes a ton of rocket fuel to get that thing up into the atmosphere. And, I think if that's the dream, if that's the goal, if that's when you've made it, right? You've done whatever it takes. There's a whole bunch of pivots that go into getting that rocket up out of the atmosphere into space where you can just float around and do what you want and grow a serious career, right? So a great way to do that, I yelled there, sorry, starting with demand and working backwards. Contemplating these ways of starting with demand and working backwards. Contemplate going into the stores and asking those questions, right? Contemplate doing Google searches. Instead of putting the pen to paper, the brush to canvas, the memory card into the camera and start shooting what you want, right? What you think is going to sell. Figure out what's going to sell first and go and create that. Go and create that. So we're going to have a ton more on this. Yes, getting into the tactical. What does it look like? How to do these exercises on Google? What are some other search engines? What are some other hacky stuff? Art storefronts customers, we're building this into the playbook of how you pivot, how to think about pivoting. And it's going to be tremendous. And we're going to be at it all year long and then some. So on that note, thanks for listening. And as always, have a great day. Letting this run on purpose, by the way. Got to make my YouTube end screen. All right, guys. I'll talk to you all soon.